Visceral Games has an interesting development history. From 2001 to 2005, the game studio was called EA Redwood Shores after their owner Electronic Arts, and their location, Redwood Shores, California. At the time, Redwood Shores were releasing game adaptations of film adaptations, namely James Bond and Lord of the Rings games.
That's interesting.
From 2006 to 2007, they had moved on to making games out of The Godfather and The Simpsons, as well as creating their own version of The Sims. By 2006, the Redwood team were itching to do something more original, something darker. They were all huge fans of the horror and sci-fi genres, and the general manager of Redwood Shores, Glenn Schofield, had an idea he'd been meaning to pitch EA's president for a while when the time was right, and a goal to go along with it. The idea? Create the most terrifying game that the company could. The goal? Take the survival horror crown away from Resident Evil. The game? Dead Space was released on October 2008 for PC, PS3, and Xbox 360 in North America. Using a heavily modified version of the engine created for their earlier title, The Godfather, this new sci-fi horror title was a passion project for the staff at Redwood Shores, particularly Schofield. During a 2013 DICE keynote called The Art of Inspiration, Schofield detailed the level of research that went into Dead Space.
And I know that you guys all have followed some of this, but so with Dead Space, started out just watching the sci-fi horror movies, right? There's a whole group of them, great ones. But then there's also sci-fi and horror, and you can start watching them, and there were a lot of horror movies. Then I start getting into stuff that's a little less obvious, some stuff from EK, and it just starts getting the IFC movies and foreign stuff. And then I start going really deep into movies that have been, like Cannibal Holocaust was banned, and there are a lot of others that should be. And then I started watching like some Eastern European and French stuff. And when I got to Martyrs and a few others by the French at that time, they were unbelievable. They were doing stuff with cameras and with angles and just like blowing my mind on some of this stuff. So the deeper you go, the more you're going to find. I estimate I watched about 400 movies during the making of that game. We had so many that we had a contest at the end and we gave them away. We gave away the ones that should have been banned.
Notable movies among the list of Dead Space inspirations include Alien, Event Horizon, 2001: A Space Odyssey, John Carpenter's The Thing, High Tension, and Eden Log. The game's inspirations weren't just films, though. The team were also referencing McFarlane toys, comics, and books by Isaac Asimov and Arthur C. Clarke, whose impact you can still see in Dead Space's main character, Isaac Clarke. The film Alien also served as a major influence, which can be seen on the game's front cover that bears a striking resemblance to early Alien artwork. Eventually, all these inspirations gelled into an impressive survival horror experience. In Dead Space, the player takes control of the aforementioned Isaac Clarke, an engineer who finds himself stuck on a spaceship that's become infested with creatures.
Short version, it's Space Zombie.
These space zombies provide the core for Dead Space's combat and the game's primary theme, dismemberment. In Dead Space, enemies aren't killed by simply getting shot. Rather, to optimize the limited ammunition, you must strategically amputate each enemy's limbs, all while navigating a derelict ship and avoiding other dangers. To promote Dead Space, EA announced 6 comics that would serve as a prequel to the game, as well as an animated film titled Dead Space Downfall that would also be a prequel.
The comic book and the animated feature, they weren't plans from the beginning. We just realized, wow, we got a really big story to tell.
We had made all the story for the game, and then we put the game in, and we're like, wow, we still have all the story left. Let's go finish telling this.
In addition, the marketing agency Deep Focus partnered with EA to create a small adventure game website called No Known Survivors. Starting on August 25, 2008, the site would unlock new features every week leading up to Dead Space's release. No Known Survivors told 2 original stories set in the world of Dead Space, both of which have been documented on the Dead Space wiki. Unfortunately, the game itself has been lost to time, as the No Known Survivors site now merely redirects to EA's Dead Space microsite. Dead Space was received very well on its release, and currently has scores for all platforms ranging around 87% on Game Rankings and Metacritic. The game was praised for its cinematic qualities, as well as its music and innovative HUD, which is elegantly unobtrusive. Isaac and Co's health, as well as other status meters and inventories, are displayed on their suits, called rigs, which stands for Really Into Guts.
Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. Up above the world so high, like a diamond in the sky. When the blazing sun is gone, when the nothing shines upon.
The year is 2508. Twinkle Twinkle Little Star is #1 on the Billboard charts, and humanity has finally recovered from nearly destroying itself due to rampant stupidity. It seems we'd used up every single resource we had on Earth, so the solution to this problem was the CEC, the Concordance Extraction Corporation, which is in no way evil. Why would you even think that? The CEC figured out that the way to get the resources humanity needed was to rip apart entire planets and mine their innards. The first ship to do this was the USG Ishimura. Fun note, Ishimura means rock village in Japanese. Also, USG stands for Unfortunate Space Guys. The Ishimura has been kicking around the universe for a while at this point, but the planet it's currently cracking into, Aegis 7, seems to be giving it some issues. The CEC receives a distress signal from the Ishimura, and Dead Space begins as a repair crew is sent to the ship.